Being the best, winning everything, and I've always had that goal, and it's great that we did pretty well and people in North America have more faith in CLG, but that doesn't really change what I set out to achieve, and for me that means expecting the best of myself, expecting the best of my team.
Once again, disciplined, clean play out of the North American squad.
我觉得我们应该会3-1击败 CLG.
Whoa, Sword Art going hard on Afro.
It's not going to happen like that, but I'm glad that they're confident going up against us, but we're just as confident, if not more.
就看当天状态吧，看谁状况比较好，谁就会赢。
Welcome everyone to the 2016 Mid-Season Invitational with just one spot left in tomorrow's finals. The pressure is on here in Shanghai's Oriental Sports Center, where as you can see, cosplayers are out in force. We had an Italy coming all the way from Texas, CLG, along with their coach Zix, making their way to the stage, very ready for business. Aftermove, cool, calm, and collected. And the Flash Wolves getting in their last reps before they go up against that North American squad. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to cover in this best-of-5 matchup, but first, we're going to join the LPL's Rendong on stage to meet today's contenders.
欢迎来到上海。你现在正在收看的是2016英雄联盟季中冠军赛第二个半决赛的对决的现场。今天的话呢，两支队伍将会角逐出晋级到总决赛。那么我们很快将会迎来的就是两支队伍的一个非常炫酷的出场了。首先
after yesterday's games with SKT dominating, it doesn't actually change the path they have in front of them. They still have to win this game to make it to the finals and have a chance.
The crowd's a lot hyped today.
Well, here's your Flash Wolves just getting introduced. The Chinese crowd here in the stadium behind them.
Of course, you see Casa, their jungler, on stage right there. He needs to have a big set against CLG today if Flash Wolves are going to pull out ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Maple has really been the standout star, and many people are expecting Karsa and Maple, and really it's been Maple that seems like he's been the one hard carrying them so far.
Yeah, but for them it's going to be about redeeming the 0-2 head-to-head record that they had against CLG in the group stages.
Yeah, highest KDA and highest kill participation for Maple right now. He's really been outperforming a lot of mids here. I have a lot of faith in these guys.
Very much so. We heard it in the teaser there at the beginning that they're confident, looking at a 3-1 victory over CLG. Speaking of which, your NA squad on the stage. They're also getting a decent cheer from the Chinese crowd here. Darshan.
Yeah, and they have a reason to be confident. They beat every single team in the group stage at least once, including a 2-0 over the Flash Wolves, with especially Darshan and Xmithy making some big strides in their play.
Yeah, I said there was questions coming into the tournament. Well, they shut me up and they've silenced a lot of other doubters around the world.
The man on your screen right there.
Because they've had a ripper of a tournament so far.
Absolutely. Aframu, though, he had the retort in the teaser that although the Flash Wolves might be confident, we're just as, if not more. Coach Zix there leading the charge for them.
And one thing I'll say, when CLG gets introed in big hype venues like we did in Las Vegas, they are stone-faced. They are so focused on the game, they have no reaction to the crowd right now.
But, you know, some might say that that's really good to see, especially from the rookies, the fact that, you know, Stixxay doesn't look to be shaken in this environment. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Our contenders for today's semifinal series, CLG versus the Flash Wolves, going up tomorrow against SKT, would be the winner of today's matchup. Thank you all so much for joining us for this clash between CLG and the Flash Wolves. I'm James Dash Patterson here on the analyst desk with the LMS's Clement Chu, the LPL's Jake Spawn Tiberi, and North America's own Joshua Jat Leesman. Gentlemen, well, I'm coming to you first, Spawn. How are you recovering after yesterday's loss?
Woo, that was tough. What a series by SKT. I said it before. When SKT plays the best League of Legends in the world, it's almost like terrifying and beautiful at the same time. They're just like a silent death. And the way that they dismantled, like completely tore apart this RNG lineup was kind of weirdly beautiful to behold.
And Jack, you mentioned that makes the finals that much scarier for either of these teams.
It does, and they have to make sure that they're looking at this game first and not thinking about, oh my goodness, how are we going to be able to beat SKT? Because, I mean, you can say one thing about SKT dominating, but also Chinese teams in the past at international events, when they fall hard. And they definitely seem to deteriorate throughout that series as SKT improved.
All right, well, with that in mind, let's review how the path of our competitors has taken them to this point. CLG finished second in the group stage, while the Flash Wolves finished one game behind them in third. Now, the winner of today's best of 5 will advance to face Korea's SK Telecom T1, who took down RNG in yesterday's semifinal. We already mentioned SKT looking back to form, and that can make this that much scary for either of these teams, but that doesn't change the fact that they've got to get through this best of 5 first in order to have the honor of facing this SKT squad.
Yeah, I think this is a time we rally behind Flash Wolves. They've never lost a Korean team in international competition, so other regions, we should be cheering for Flash Wolves here.
They 2-0'd the Tigers last year at Worlds, but I will say 3 of their players when they're on the Gamma Bears in 2013 did get swept by Faker and SKT,
That's
so
ancient history.
Gonna couch that statement a little bit. Yeah, it's too long ago, it doesn't matter.
And you know, the scary thing is, right, we can say that SKT, they're back in pre-tournament form, but the way they ended that last game, that game 4, I mean, the perfect game against RNG, who came through as a #1 seed, actually means that maybe they've even surpassed that. Like, 4 days off is a very long time for this SKT lineup, and they looked pretty good yesterday.
Yeah, RNG 8-2 in the group stages. We were looking at them as like, oh my goodness, where did they come from? Here they are. They've surfaced, and then SKT perfect game them. That is just That is a terrifying thought if you're going to have to go up against that squad anytime soon. Well, now it's time to look at today's semifinals. Now, both teams came into the tournament as underdogs, and they surprised everyone. I know for you, Spawn, particularly CLG, showed you some stuff that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, CLG was a team that came in, and you know, I ranked them 5th. I did not have much faith in this lineup. I thought that Stixxay too young, Huhi not good enough in the mid lane, and you know, their top laner had failed on the international stage multiple times, and they come through and they gradually answer every single question. Stixxay, the Caitlyn is godlike. Huhi can go toe-to-toe with the best in the business and is able to get it done. And that man on your screen, Darshan, is clutch in late-game situations. They really have stepped up and taken their gameplay, I feel, to the next level in this tournament. And it's honestly been amazing to track their performance.
And talking with the team, it's been mostly about confidence. They've had 2 international failures in the past where they were playing too passive because they were a little fearful of the other teams and really not playing their own game. Now they are saying they're respectful of other teams, but not fearful. And it does show in their play with their willingness to take the off-bucket picks like Aurelion Sol, to take the Caitlyn, to take the Soraka, think they have the right way to read the meta, and then execute on that, which was the 7-3 group stage, 1 win away from actually being the first seed in the group stage. Then they could have played SKT earlier. Would have been great.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, I respect them a lot for playing their own game. They said, okay, we're going to play these long-range supports, and we're going to siege all the time. If you look at their CKPM, 0.83, they're willing to go into so many team fights, despite the perception that they're actually weaker mechanical players.
Now, on the flip side, Flash Wolves, we got to look at them as well. Coming into this series, you already mentioned it, Clement, they're the team that has beaten SKT twice. So if you're going to draw your confidence from anywhere, it's from that. It's the fact that you've beaten the now probably tournament favorite in SKT twice.
I will say that I think Flash Wolves coming into this series is a little bit of an underdog. They haven't had the cleanest of games. Their games so far, it's a bit of a mix-up. Are you going for the early game? Are you going to go for the late game push? So I really hope that these 4 days, they really shape up their identity and clean up their play entirely. Fluwins has said they're going to try to go for against Huhi and Xmithy and try to exploit that 2v2 mid.
Yeah, and I mean, Maple is definitely the strength for Flash Wolves coming in here, and we were expecting a faster play, but they have been the slowest team here. Their combined kills per minute, 0.54 coming into this one, and obviously the mid lane matchup is going to be huge. I will also need to say that Flash Wolves have also limited their deaths a whole lot, even though they're playing slower. So they are playing safe, but fairly controlled.
So the thing is, right, Maple has got great kill participation. They play around him. However, when you think of this guy, you think carry mid laner, and his damage per minute isn't actually that higher than Huhi, and their games are going much longer. So Maple, sure, he's playing fantastically, the team plays around him, but that's all they do is play around their mid laner. And I think that unless they can really exploit that 2v2, as you said, is their game plan, that might actually come back and bite them a little bit.
And it's generally pretty rare that a mid laner has the highest KP on a team, right? Isn't that indicative of the fact that not much is happening in the early game until the map kind of gets spread out?
A fair bit. He needs to roam around. The mid laner is usually near the highest as well. It varies between a lot of different roles sometimes, but 79.2%. is indicative of the fact that they're not fighting much without Maple, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, then if we look on the flip side in terms of strengths against weaknesses, we've got Stixxay up against NL.
And this is where the big difference from me, at least, is because Stixxay is having a career tournament, 676 damage per minute, up against 567. Like, Stixxay, most kills in the tournament. He is absolutely going through a tear and challenging experienced AD carries and younger ones alike. And honestly, he has a different champion pool, Kalista, Caitlyn, but he's just making them all work.
Exactly, and the team's playing around him very well. He's creating a lot of space in team fights by going overly aggressive, but that does open up Stixxay to clean up the back ends of these fights. And it's been a season of growth for Stixxay, and his largest amount of growth has been before the MSI right here. NL's going to have to do a lot to stay close to him because NL has been able to make a few clutch plays when it mattered, but Stixxay has made many, many more plays this tournament.
Yeah, you know, the comparison of their champion pools is somewhat interesting just because yesterday we saw Twitch and Sivir banned out quite often and some contested picks there. But here, Ezreal most favored by NL, followed by Lucian. Stixxay being forced onto the Lucian since the Caitlyn's been banned so often.
And the one thing I do want to say is NL did have a good Ezreal game towards the end of group stages, so we've kind of seen him come back into form because this was a guy in the LMS that was having a great start to the season. I mean, he ended the playoffs with a pentakill for his team, so NL can step up, and they're going to need him to in this set if they have any shot against CLG.
I just want to see NL really hold the laning phase together. If you look at their game against CLG, the first game, they lost bot super hard, but were still able to claw in an 8K advantage later in the game. I think if they hold that lane even, don't let the turret fall, then they have a good footing going forward.
Looking for stuff elsewhere, and that's where we move to play styles between these teams. We've hit two of the lanes that we think might swing things the most, but between these two teams, they play very differently.
Exactly. We've mentioned before, CLG's come in with this guns blazing. They've been going fast games, very bloody. You can see the combined kills per minute difference is huge between CLG and the Flash Wolves. But then you look at the kill to death ratio, CLG's been playing fairly reckless, whereas Flash Wolves have been playing rather controlled. The best kill to death ratio in the tournament, despite actually losing a lot of their early games on average. So that does speak to their ability to come together as a team later in the game.
This is definitely a question I have for kind of like Sword Art. I think that good KD ratio comes from a lot of the turret diving and the aggressive surrounds they got. I want to see what Sword Art takes out the bag if he doesn't get the Alistar this series.
And it's interesting just because both of these trends, these playstyle trends for the teams in this tournament do seem to contradict at least what we had seen from them during the regular season in their respective regions.
Yeah, and that's what really confuses me because CLG, they were pulling the map apart in North America, lots of lane swap. You know, they were even quite slow at times and they really were trying to use Darshan on a superior split pusher. And even when it went to tanks, he favored the Echo very heavily. Now they're going towards team fighting. They're willing to sacrifice Echo for Poppy more than any other team. Yeah. And their games are very, very bloody. In fact, it brings a tear to a Chinese analyst's eye, Stash, how these teams are willing to play these games.
Yeah, Darshan's least played of the meta tanks is Echo. 5 plays on Poppy, 3 plays on Maokai. And what's interesting is they've never actually played against Maokai. So CLG has been controlling the meta tanks more so than anything, and then getting their team fight wins at the end of games, which isn't what you expected from them whatsoever, which is really kind of impressive that they're able to go 7-3 with that style.
And on the flip side, Clement, Flash Wolves, during the season in their region, not too often running for the Dragon, not looking for those global objectives necessarily, but here, they're out-dragoning CLG by 10, 29 to 19 Dragons over the course of the group stage. And that's very unusual for us to sit here and see.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the first game against CLG where they lost because of the 5 Dragons. That really put their emphasis on the Dragon again. I think for this game, again, they're trying to go for the mid laner a little bit. If you look at the 2 games they played against CLG, they went Karma and Gangplank and pretty much gave the lane to Hui. I don't want to see that again. I think if you take away the Rise, Azir, LeBlanc, the other 2 first-tier mid lane picks, they're comfortable with both. So just play around that.
All right, we'll look to do that. Last thing we got to discuss here, rather, is stakes for both of these teams. Of course, they've made it to the bracket stages. They've secured that #1 seed for their regions, but there's so much more on the line, particularly for these 2 squads.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you look at this, CLG, you know, it was weird because they're here battling for North America. They re-secure the top seed, which was, I guess, mission #1. But now they get to do more. They get to, on an international stage, prove that the roster swaps were correct. And this old organization, one of the old gods in North America, really is back to their pinnacle in terms of form.
Yeah, and I think for CLG, it's all about sustained success. they've had a good first week at an international event before, and then they were winless in the second week. So yeah, NA fans can still be disappointed if they end up getting 3-0'd by Flash Wolves right here, but I absolutely agree with what Spawn just said. This is still CLG trying to prove that NA is back on the map and that they can succeed in an international event, and they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves to make that the case.
For Flash Wolves, I think they've already done their job. They took the first seed away from EU, and now they're just here to prove that sticking together... oh, I'm sorry.
No, Spawn's like, yes, yes, they did.
Sticking together was the right decision for this split, and they can do better. Not going to NA, not going to China. They're going to stick together and prove LMS is worth its salt.
All right, well, plenty of discussion had here. Now it's time to move towards the games. Before we do that, I've got to put you guys on the spot, as I did the other gentleman yesterday. Prediction time down the line. Flash Wolves, CLG, who's moving on to face SKT in the finals tomorrow?
I had a lot of talk about faith with Kobe, and I have to put my faith here in Flash Wolves. I think their big advantage comes from personnel, and you can change strategy in 5 days. You can't change personnel in 5 days.
All righty, well, there you have it, an endorsement for the Flash Wolves. Spawn, what do you got for me?
So I said at the start of the tournament that I had questions for CLG, and questions aren't necessarily a bad thing. They've answered every single one in a positive way, and I think they're a much better side in Flash. In fact, I don't think Flash Wolves get a game.
All right, there it is, the 3-0 call by Spawn. Jet?
Hearing that confidence worries me a little bit because I know that North American success at international events is inversely proportional to expectations.
Oh, we're doomed.
If I wanted CLG to win, I would say 3-0 Flash Wolves. But in my analysis, I do think like CLG are the favorites. I would say CLG 3-1, which means we have a majority desk, which means I am sorry, North America. CLG is doomed. But I really think they can win this one 3-1.
All righty, well, we've got 2-1 on the desk. Now, though, it's time to kick it over to our casters for this semifinal showdown. We'll get a look into a squad that truly lives the old axiom, teamwork, OP.
要不要先唱首歌啊？
我已经想不到要唱什么了，又是世界之巅。米蛋，快点唱一首什么歌？什么歌？周杰伦的歌怎么样？
不要啦，总有一天。
又是这首吗？
我要去跟他单挑。
泡俱乐部。我觉得这场我正在啤酒箱上面打碟。我觉得你们现在就这么嗨，20分钟就结束了。没有成年，直接举马他，直接。其实我们在闪电狼每天都过得很开心，就是队员之间相处也都很融洽。其实我们之间真的没有什么吵架的经验，我们都是很开心的在享受这个游戏。Nice， 唱歌喽！总有一天，
敢真的这样凶我的，我可以要点一下头。
世界之间。我觉得我们跟其他队比较不一样的地方，就是我们在就是打职业的时候，我们就比较像是在享受游戏，在玩游戏的感觉。然后比赛赢的话就会很开心。然后可能其他队的话就比较觉得这是一份工作这样，所以我们才会对这个队伍比较有感情。
我们也是一起努力很久的队友，好几年了，所以大家感情都蛮好的。
我们队伍气氛相比其他队的话也很棒，就是我们队伍气氛越好，打的就越好。
可以吃掉吗？巴龙，我的泰莎这边帮他扫。
就有些队伍，就算在 LMS 赛区，也有队伍是选手，就是很像 Pro Gamers， 就只是来上班的。我们队可能跟他们不同的，就是我们队真的是像家人一样啊，就是他低潮的时候，大家会鼓励他。
我在例行赛的时候真的是打得非常烂，我自己都觉得我自己是不是不该当选手了。然后他们也没有因此放弃我，反而给我很多努力跟时间。他们就是不会因为几次的失误之外就把我踢掉。其实我蛮感动的。
我觉得对任何一队来说，培养新人选手都是很重要的事情。但是我觉得我们比较特别的是，我们培养出来的选手都是很有天分，就是我们愿意培养这些。就是目前可能成绩不太好，但是以后一定会有成就的。
我觉得闪电狼就是相信我们吧，对吧？然后我们也就是尽我们的能力去回报他们。
I love that piece. I can say that I also really enjoy my job and working with you, gentlemen.
Oh, so nice.
Bring it in, boys.
Bring it.
There we go. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, it's certain that we'll win by the end of the day. It's going to be uncertain whether CLG or Flash Wolves move on to take on SKT in the MSI